Hello everybody, I'm Antonia and this is Noel and we are from Boxtail Soup Theatre Company and this is another Boxtail Scoop. As you can see, we are surrounded by papier-mâché objects and that is basically all we've been doing this week. We realised that there was, well, as you can see from the set model that we showed you last week, there was obviously going to be a huge quantity of papier-mâché to do, and we thought that it was best to just basically blast through it. So we've spent the majority of the week sat at these tables with our newspaper and our PVA glue and water mix, just slapping on papier-mâché.
We've done almost nothing else.
Yeah.
I mean, the occasional email, and then other than that, we've sat for hours each day just doing.
It's quite therapeutic in some ways, although you do get quite stiff shoulders after doing it for a while. I suppose it's probably very quickly worth saying why we do it. We make all of our set, as I think we've probably said before, out of foam board, which we, in fact, were very lucky enough. We have a lovely relationship with a paper mill, and we got some of the stock that they would have gone to landfill, and so we got to take that from them. So that's what we make our set out of. A lot of the reason for that is because it's lightweight and it is relatively durable.
Yeah, I mean, as a kind of strength to weight ratio, considering it's so light, it's actually still quite strong. Not quite strong enough just to use it raw though, so it does need something to reinforce it and to give it a little bit more durability. But
the other reason why we then cover it is not just to make it stronger, but it's also for aesthetic purposes. So then once we've covered it, and then we usually spray paint the set, it gives it that papery quality which goes with the whole aesthetic of what we do and gives that sense of things that have, because we adapt from literature usually, we like the sense that the whole show has kind of come out through the pages of a book, and having the papier-mâché on top of all the set definitely gives it that lovely papery quality. With the trees and stuff, it gives them a little bit of texture, doesn't it? It gives them a bit of like barky texture or leafy texture, or whatever you want to.
Yeah, it does. It gives it something, just a little, a little something on the surface. And even though obviously it's painted, even then you can see under the paint it's got something other than just a smooth, flat foam board surface to it. I mean, actually, I don't know whether it's because we've done so much of it or whether we've seen so much of it, and so it's a kind of Stockholm syndrome effect. But I actually quite like the look of it raw now as well, so maybe one day we might use.
It does always make me want to do a show where it would be appropriate to leave the raw paper on there, the raw newspaper. And we were laughing as well because we tend to use a certain free paper that you can get on the tubes, and we were seeing people had filled out their puzzles and stuff, so there's like people who filled out crosswords and they're part of the set, and there's something kind of lovely about that. So really there's not much more to tell you about that. It's a job that we have to get done. Oh, that's a conker falling on the roof. It's autumn, guys, and
it's much colder as well.
It is way colder. My nose is running. But it's a job that we have to get done, and we tend to listen to an audiobook while we're doing it to keep us entertained.
Yes, but there's not much more to say about it than that. It's very just kind of mindless. You just have to keep going, get everything covered, be as neat as you can.
And as quick as we are about it now, it does kind of just take as long as it takes
There's
as well.
a huge amount to cover, so it takes time.
So we're nearly there. We've got two more of the kind of main trees to cover and one big piece to cover. But we've done most of the edging, which is the bit that takes the longest. And then these kind of fiddly little things, which are the things that attach the two ends of the tree together, two halves, of the tree together. The other thing that we had to show you, which we sort of saved really from last week, are the witch, puppet and ma. So in between papier-mâché, I have been just putting the finishing touches on the witch's hat and hair. So I think we showed you an illustration, a little drawing.
I might just pop the drawing up again, just so you can see the comparison. Because actually, it's turned out quite close to the drawing. There's a few little alterations that we've made for good reason.
So she's got, as we had designed, she's got this witch's hat, but with a bit of chef hat in as well, because she's this sort of star super baker. She's got grey and pink hair. I wanted her to look a little bit like she had candy floss in her hair, and to give her a slightly friendlier look, because obviously, as we keep saying, this show is for 3-year-olds upwards, so we want to make sure that we're not terrifying them with our witch, and I'm quite pleased with her. I think she's quite sweet. So she's missing a white and red, you can see on the drawing, striped sort of headband thing that would form the base of the hat and just make that
a candy stripe thing.
Yeah, exactly. Which will look nice, I think. And on the drawing, I think I put red stripes on the hat. We discarded that yesterday, in fact, because it just made it look a little bit like used like a robber. It was kind of like a robber.
Yeah, because it was red and black, and there's that immediate. I don't know why you just make that connection immediately. It looks like a traditional burglar's jersey. I don't know that burglars have a uniform, but there you go.
Or Dennis the Menace or something
exactly,
like that.
Yeah.
So as with all of the hair for the puppets, this has been done in the same way, including the hats have been done in the same way to try and keep it as lightweight as possible. So I've used individual strands of paper that I've then sculpted with PVA glue to make the shapes of the hair and the shape of the hat. And with the hat, we'll do a slightly closer up version, but you can see I've tried to give it that three-dimensional quality by using strips of paper just to kind of.
I think one thing that is worth mentioning about the way that you've done that is that I've got her, yeah.
Oh yeah, cool.
Is that although obviously, as you will have seen, we have made the heads with a cardboard frame, and we build that cardboard frame up first. The way that you do all of the hair and the hat and everything up here, Antonia hasn't used any frame for that, so that's been kind of painstakingly built up by layering pieces of paper and making the right shape with pieces of paper covered with glue. And then maybe you wait for some of that to dry and then put more of that on. But it's actually really surprising as well how strong those thick coloured pieces of paper, and they've been covered with PVA glue, and they're actually a lot sturdier than you might expect. So
yeah, it's very much building up by layers. Definitely.
A slightly different way of doing those two sections.
And then we've got so that's the witch, and then we've got Ma over here, who's Hansel and Gretel's parent in the play, and she hasn't got any eyebrows yet because we want to do a kind of trick with the eyebrows. The eyebrows are in this little coaster there. We want to do a trick with the eyebrows, and we haven't quite figured it out yet, so we've got to have a play with that. But she's got the same. The hair's done in the same way, so built up with strands of paper covered in PVA glue. And I wanted to just put little flecks of grey in the hair. I like to use at least 2 tones of paper in the hair because it makes it look a little bit more real, I suppose. It gives it a bit more life. It can look a bit flat sometimes if it's one colour. Having said that, in the Christmas Carol, the Cratchits, I very much made them redheads, so they all have this colour hair. She's got 3 different colours.
And then the only other point worth mentioning is that obviously these ones are painted, where for Christmas Carol, for example, and for many of the other shows where we've got human characters who are puppets, we've often left the paper blank for that. So we've used the kind of the white sugar paper that we have covered so many things with, or it's a sort of, it's a kind of cream off-white colour, and we've often just left that without any kind of paint or covering on it. For this show, because all of the animals are obviously have got paint on them, you want it to have a consistency of appearance, so we knew that we were very probably going to have to cover them somehow or paint them somehow. And as soon as you start to do that, obviously for animal characters it's a little bit different because you're simply painting them the appropriate colour for the animal. But when we were painting these human characters, we had to kind of think for a moment about what colour exactly we were going to paint them. It's very difficult to find any kind of natural looking skin tone, and there was an option, a paint called Elm, which is like a light.
It would make them look a little bit like a China doll. It's not dissimilar to the colour that we used in the end for Alice, for our Alice puppets. We also had to paint her face. And in fact, what we did with her is I actually put some of my own makeup on the paint and then we varnished over it because she needed to look as similar to me as possible.
Yeah.
But the Elm is China doll, really. Like that's what it looked like.
Yeah, and it's difficult because as soon as you start to choose a colour like that, then it seems as though you're making a particular statement about it, or by making them look like a China doll, they have a certain kind of appearance that wasn't necessarily something we wanted to go for. So we went back and forth on the possible colours that we could use, and in the end we decided to go for something that we thought would be kind of relatively non-naturalistic. So the colour that you can actually see on them here is one of the colours that we've chosen to use for the gingerbread house. So we've got 2 different colours for that. We've got this paint, which is actually called Toffee, and then we've got another one which I think is called Terra, which is a kind of terracotta colour, and we're going to use them to colour the bits of the gingerbread house. However, we decided we'd start with the witch, and we thought maybe if she was simply the same colour as her house, that might be quite fun. And then when we put it on her, we decided that actually it worked quite well, and so we would use it for Ma as well. And obviously then we've got this, this kind of pink cheeks, and which is again not particularly naturalistic. But unexpectedly, what I really like about it is that I actually think it works really nicely on the faces of the puppets, but I also think that it almost gives them a sort of wooden, it almost gives them like a carved puppet appearance.
Yeah, I think so.
That I think is really nicely appropriate for Hansel and Gretel, for this story, for the kind of Grimm's fairy tales.
Yeah.
Somehow it just works, and I'm really happy that
it's nice because it sort of goes both with, as you say, the wood, and it also goes with the gingerbread cottage. So, because I realise they actually blend in rather beautifully with our studio.
Yeah.
So we're not sure whether we might dial back the pink a little on Ma, but in a way, we do quite like the idea of that non-naturalism. Is that a word? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, basically, you're not trying to make it look like a
real person.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because they're not. They're puppets,
No.
and it's more fun to kind of lean into that than try and make them look very real. So we're pleased with them, and just like I said, the trick with her eyebrows is left to do with her. So we will love you and leave you now and get back to our papier-mâché, because we've still got a fair amount to do. We've been definitely doing long days. It's now at that stage in the process where it's a lot of long days for us, but it's all fun, and we are really excited about how well it's coming together.
What's really nice now is seeing it all start to stand up, and seeing these characters in amongst the set, as well as I was saying to you the other day, really makes it feel like it's starting to come to life. So I can't wait to get the rest of this covered and get some of that painted as well, so that we can see what the whole thing looks like together.
So thank you very much for watching. As always, please do leave us a comment, ask any questions you would like, subscribe to the channel. We would love to have you, and I think that's it, is it?
Yeah.
Right, well, we'll see you next week.
Thanks.